is just the tool to be used on the lower control arms that I built for one of the Jeeps here. In the front, you can see that's the factory original lower control arm, and then in the back, those are the two that I built. The reason I built my own control arms is because you could see where this is all rotted out, and in fact this is part of the bushing itself. It just slides into here. This is the bushing that's deteriorated, and you can see the rubber in behind that. Those are the ones I built in the back. That's going to be some square tubing, and then I use some pipe, and those are pretty heavy duty. Admittedly, you don't need to do that. What you could do is you could just get a piece of metal that's going to fill in this gap on the bottom here. And you can go as far as you want. You could go from end to end, or you could just strengthen it in the middle. And by doing that, you should be able to press out your old bushings and then press in your new ones. Now in my case, this is what I've built, and this is just the square tubing, and then I got a pipe in there to accept our bushings, and then what I did was I put these two bushings in here. Now that's threaded all the way through, and that's going to be accept our tool. That was half the reason I built these, was to be able to use a tool to fix and replace those anywhere you are. You can be out in the field, in your yard, whatever. You don't need a press to be able to do this job. Originally what I did was I just used a piece of 1-inch square tubing here. I welded a nut on there. I got some holes drilled in, and then this is going to be my puller pusher kind of tool to install my bushings. But as you can see, it wasn't strong enough, and now it's bent. So this is no good. So I had to come up with a better version of the same tool. Right here is a compact version of our tool. This is all assembled. I'll break it down and I'll show you all the components there. And what we needed to do was we needed to find a 9/16 bolt that was long enough to go along with our tool here. So I just grabbed this bolt here, and then I took a die and I brought the threads down further so that it's more workable. We can actually use this to press the bushings in and out of our lower control arm. Here's the tool all broke down with all its components here. First and foremost, we replaced that 1-inch square tubing with a piece of pipe here. So all this is a piece of pipe. We found just the right size, and as you can see here, these are plug welds. So inside is a piece of shaft, and then what I did was I drilled a hole and I tapped that for our pusher bolt there. I also drilled and tapped the ends inside there, and that's going to accept our bolts here. What happens is when you want to put it all together, you take your little sleeve here, that's our spacer, that's going to go inside, and then this bolt will go inside there, and it's going to thread into that portion that's right there. And then we'll have this on the end, and then our two plates here. This side here will bolt into this side, and then likewise this side will bolt into this side, and it keeps it all compact, and the only two pieces will have this assembled piece, and then we'll have our pusher bolt separate from that. I just took a piece of shaft, I drilled and tapped that hole, I drilled and tapped two holes on the ends there, and then I drilled holes in this pipe, and I just plug welded it in place on both sides so it's not going to go anywhere. And then I have these holes here that are drilled out. Now this is a 9/16 bolt, and then those holes are going to be a 5/8 to give us some clearance and some room to assemble our tool. These two plates here, they are designed to go on here, so that goes over, because you see this sticks up, so we just wanted to level that out. And then this plate here levels out on the inside of the bushing, and then it also contacts this, which contacts the outside of the bushing, and then that's going to, working together, that's going to push the bushing out. So this side here, this piece here, is to push the bushings out, because the outside diameter is smaller than our pipe that goes in there that accepts that bushing. The two plates on this side here, that is going to be for the installation portion. Again, you can see this raised portion on this bushing. You also see that raised portion on this bushing as well. Take this plate and we're going to put that around there. And again, this is meant to contact the outside of the bushing. And then this plate here is meant to contact both the inside, and then combined with this one, contact the outside. So they're working together is going to push the whole bushing in. And this is the installation piece, and that is the removal. Since we have this bushing installed, I'll set it up to remove the bushing so you can see how this works, and then we'll just reinstall it again. As we set this up, we have our strong back here. We're going to have our 2 bolts, this one and this one, and then we have these 2 bushings, that one and that one. The bushings will go between the strong back and the control arm, and then they're going to be guided and held in place with these bolts here, and that's why we have this as a threaded portion to accept that. On this side here, we're going to have our puller bolt, and then we have our 2 plates, as we discussed earlier, that are going to contact in there, and it's going to engage into the threaded portion of this. Now, when you're going to turn this clockwise, it's going to suck that bolt into our strong back. These spacers here are going to give that space there. It's going to allow this bushing to be pulled out into this space here, and then removed from our lower control arm. This is more or less the finished assembly. These bolts here only need to be hand tight. Just snug those up so nothing's loose here. We're going to engage our puller bolt into there. I'm just going to use the impact to drive that out. Now on the reverse, to install this thing, what we have is these little spacers here. I just drilled those out. I found a couple of nuts, drilled them out so that they'll just slide over top of our 9/16 bolt there. That spacer will go in between here. The bolt will just guide it. We're not worried about this here because once the threaded rod gets engaged into here, it's going to pull this tight to there. Once we've got all this set up, now we use our other 2 plates to fit on this side of the bushing. So that's the washer style one that goes on there, and then this is the full face one that goes on. That'll thread into there. It's going to pull against that, and it's going to drive that bushing in. Once again, here's what it looks like all broken down, and then we'll put it all together and show you how it fits once everything's assembled here. Here's the assembly all compact and put together. It doesn't take up very much space. My plan is to keep that in the vehicle. If I need it, I have it, and I can use it anywhere I want. I don't need a shop press in order to change out these bushings.